Good morning. My name is Brian Gerke. I'm CEO of Open Robotics, and it is my, thank you. It is my great pleasure to welcome you to ROSCon 2017 here in beautiful downtown Vancouver. First of all, I would like to thank our sponsors. We could not do this without them. We've had a record sponsor response this year. We've got 33 sponsors in total, which is more sponsors in count and also in dollars than we've ever had before, which is pretty fantastic. And it's just great to see some of the biggest players in the field, as well as some of the new entrants, are really interested in coming to this conference and financially supporting it, and then also just connecting with the community. And I'll say that a lot of these folks are hiring, and so I highly encourage you to speak to the sponsors, go check out their booths, and I'll explain where that is in just a moment. I'll also say that everything that we're doing here, as we always have done since 2012, is being videoed, and it will be archived thanks to our friends at Canonical/Ubuntu, and also we're doing a live stream thanks to our friends at Tony Robotics. So if you go to the program page, I mean, you shouldn't do this because you're here, but if people go to the program page, they can find links both for a global feed and one specifically for China. So we're really excited to see a lot of response online. How does this happen? So every year we convene an organizing committee, and that's the group that you see on top there. And so we're the group of people who do all the planning sessions and kind of figure out how things are going to go and make some of the key organizational decisions. Every year we pick someone who's local to the destination to really help us to make all the local arrangements and give us advice on how best to do it there. And this year that's Professor Elizabeth Croft from UBC, so we're very thankful for her support. In addition, we convene a program committee, and for that we take the organizing committee and then we recruit other people from the community. And this year you can see the program committee there on the bottom. Those are folks from both industry and academia who are just really key people in the field who we're really happy to have them come and spend their time doing proposal review and deciding what makes up the program. So this is the group of people who decided what the material is that you're going to see here today. So you can either thank or blame them after the fact. But I have to thank the real organizers, the people who actually make this thing turn over and not catch fire, are my colleague and the CFO of Open Robotics, Roberta Friedman, and from Meet Green, Carly Copra. They're the folks who really just make sure that we have everything here and it works. So a big thanks to them. This year, for the second time, we ran a diversity program, or we are running a diversity program. And we do this because we believe that diversity is important, and it's something that we often don't pay enough attention to, and it's something that all the evidence suggests that if you want to make an improvement, you have to affirmatively pay attention to it and make efforts to support people who are members of underrepresented groups in your field. And so to that end, we have a diversity scholarship committee, which is spearheaded by my colleague Deanna Hood, and she brings together a group of people who craft the program, put out a call for applications, and then review those applications. And then with sponsor support, and you can see our sponsors listed here specifically for the diversity program, we're able to fund people to attend this conference. So this year we have 16 diversity scholars from 9 countries, and we're really excited to have them here just improving the makeup of our field. And this is something we're committed to, and we're almost certainly going to do again next year. As we do every year, we have lightning talks. This is one of the key features of ROSCon, where you get 3 minutes up here in front of the crowd to pitch your idea, pitch your new company, tell people about a cool new tool that you wrote, whatever it is. We're going to start sign-ups for those each day at the first break. So at 10:45 this morning, we're going to start registration, sign up out at the registration desk. There's a laptop there. If you're using slides, which you're welcome to, you load them on there, and we'll do this first come, first serve. We only have a limited number of spots each day. We'll do sign up each day. So I encourage you to try to get in there. We're probably not going to accommodate everybody, but that's how it goes. And we always do this on site. We don't reserve any spots in advance because we really just want it to be kind of serendipitous, and we want to find out who is most motivated to present their idea. Who are we? So first of all, we sold out for the 3rd year in a row. So we capped the registration at 500, which is, we hit actually last week. And we've got we're accommodating, there's always a little wiggle room, so we accommodate a few extra people. But it's really great to see the growth of the conference year over year, where the first year we did this, we were 200 people or so in St. Paul, Minnesota, and I see some 2012 shirts out there, which is great. And now we're more than twice the size, and I think it really reflects both the growth of interest in robotics generally, but in ROS specifically. So we're really excited to see that. You can also see here from the demographics we were able to collect through registration data, the global breakdown. And not surprisingly, given that we're doing this in Canada, the lion's share of the attendees are from the Americas. Last year, by contrast, when we did this in Seoul, we had almost 50% were from Asia. So that just reflects the fact that it really is important where you put an event in terms of what the makeup of people is going to be. I'll also point out that historically, we've been about 2/3 non-student and 1/3 student. And here we're seeing a shift more toward 80-20. So I still hope we can attract a lot of students, and we set our fees as low as we possibly can, and also offer a number of complimentary registrations to bring in students. But I think it's also a positive sign that we're seeing such heavy non-student / industry interest. I think that reflects the kind of the maturation of the field, and that's a good thing. Logistics, we will have 2 breaks per day, 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon. They're fully catered, coffee and food and so on, and they will be over by the exhibit area. And we also do lunch. So that lunch will be downstairs in ballroom C and D. And thank you to our lunch sponsor for today, Plus One Robotics. We will also do, as we always have done since the beginning, a reception. That will be at 6 p.m. today after the last session. And that is brought to you by Fetch Robotics, which we're very thankful for. And I'll also make a note here, it was in the program that we published. We're going to do a group photo at the end of that last session before we break for the reception. So please stick around and make sure you're here. We'll do the photo from the stage. In terms of the space, you can see the arrow pointing to where we are right now. So for the AM and PM breaks, if you go out and turn left, go all the way to the end, aim for the big glass wall overlooking the water, and you'll see the exhibitors. And that's also where we're going to do the coffee breaks, and that's also where the reception is going to happen. And like I said, lunch is going to be downstairs. And also for the first time this year, we're doing a poster session. So we invited all the accepted presenters to prepare a poster, and you can see those lining the hallway as you're aiming for the exhibit area. You can go check out the posters anytime, but the official poster session is during the reception. So during the reception, grab a drink, grab some food, and you should be able to find the people who have put those posters up and ask them questions. There's Wi-Fi. Details are here. I think it was also emailed to you. If you communicate on Twitter, then there's some random strings. As a surprise treat this year, we worked with our artist, Josh Ellington, who's done all the ROS art over the years, and had him produce a ROS coloring book. It's really cool. We had him, yeah, it's great. We had enough printed that everybody here can have one. If you go back to the registration desk sometime later today, there is a stack there. Please don't take more than one. We only have enough for one of each of you. And I think there will also be crayons. And with that, I'll just thank our sponsors again. And we're doing something a little different this year. I'm going to hand things over, now that we're 10 years into ROS, to my colleague and one of really the founders of the ROS project, Tilly Foote.
Hi there. Really excited to be here. Really excited to see all of you here. This is really what it's about. It's about you and connecting with the community. As Brian mentioned, our first ROSCon was in 2012 in St. Paul. How many of you were here? Show of hands. Got a good number. So this is actually our 6th ROSCon, and it's really great. Every year we've been growing a little bit. We had, in 2014, we actually had an event both at ICRA in Hong Kong as well as Chicago. And since then, we've been following along with IROS in the fall. So it's great to have this tradition going, keep it growing, and showing the community growing. To go with that, as Brian mentioned, we're coming up on 10 years. In the next month or so, we're going to be celebrating the 10-year anniversary of the ROS project, how it got started at Willow Garage, and then going through. You can see all the 11 different ROS distros that we have released over the years, with Lunar being the latest. If you want to see more information about what's going on exactly, there's the ROS metrics report that just came out, and you can actually see the adoption curve for each one over time. But in particular, with the 10-year anniversary coming up, one of the important things we want to do is actually emphasize you and the community, what's going on out there. So if you have suggestions for things you'd like to see featured and shown off, companies or people you'd like to see profiled, please reach out to me, and I'll work to bring that into our 10-year anniversary celebrations. So one of the things I'd like to emphasize is that ROS is not alone. This is just a selection of some of the projects that came off the top of my head as projects that we collaborate with the ROS community. One of the really important things about ROS is that we are a community, we are open source, and we need to make sure to work with everybody else. So with all these projects, such as Bullet, Eigen, KDL, Orocos, BFL, PCL, MoveIt, Octomap, OpenCV, Gazebo, Player Stage, ROS Industrial, and the simple 2D simulator. It's a great community, and we want to keep reaching out and growing the projects that we integrate with, etc. So, as Brian mentioned, we're a pretty large worldwide community, and we're growing quickly. We've been doing the metrics report since 2011, and as you can see, we have large amounts of growth, which is really great. That's why we love having all of you here. And also for the worldwide community, this is a snapshot of what we have for the where people are visiting the ROS Wiki. As you can see, the US has been a strong player. Recently, China has been growing a lot, as well as Japan and Korea, and Germany is also a major contributor. But I want to point out there's over 10 countries with 10,000 visitors or more per month to the wiki. So it's not, like you can see the big players in dark blue, but all the other countries are also quite present. So to give you a little bit of history, going back in time a little bit, many of you were probably not involved in the early stages. The first versions of ROS were actually hosted on SourceForge. We were there for quite a while until we got to the point that an SVN check-in was taking like 4 to 15 minutes. And after we started debugging with SourceForge, we found out that the ROS project was actually the majority of commits going into SourceForge at that point. And that's why they were providing a free service, and because they were sort of the home for open source software at the time, we wanted to use them. But from there, we evolved, and Willow Garage started hosting code.ros.org. That is the same, using the open source engine that is behind SourceForge. And for a while, we were using that, but then we wanted to move on to more modern version control tools. So we switched over to kforge.ros.org, which started out with Subversion and Mercurial, and eventually we added Git support. From there, we also started using more of the community hosting services at Google, Google Code. And then, of course, there's the more modern evolutions of GitHub, Bitbucket, GitLab, which most of us are using these days as the de facto open source community hosting, which is really great to see the evolution. You can see the moving from the centralized version controls to the decentralized ones, which is great for helping the community grow and the open source ecosystem. So I want to go over a couple of the landmark robots from the ROS evolution. Many of you, I'm sure, are familiar with the PR2. At Willow Garage, when we were developing ROS, we wanted to have a platform that we could show that ROS was capable of doing cutting-edge research. And to do that, we needed to have a platform that we could demonstrate it on. And with that, we put together the PR2. And this is the first robot that was using ROS through and through, from bottom to top. It's been a great research product. You have all seen the research that came out of that. But in 2012, the Baxter came out. And we are really happy to see that, because this is the first robot that was commercially produced and sold, and it was not a research robot that was using ROS because they wanted the research. It was actually using ROS under the hood because they wanted to, it was the right tool to use, and they felt this is how to produce a commercial product. A little around that time as well, the TurtleBot came out. The TurtleBot was a response to some of us at Willow. We would hear people saying, oh, we don't have a PR2, and we want to use ROS, but we don't have the budget for a PR2. And we wanted to show that ROS can be used on anything that can run a Linux laptop. So taking the Xbox Kinect that had just come out, a netbook, and the iRobot crate, we were able to have the Turtlebot. Other ones, we have the Robonaut 2 on the ISS is running ROS. ROS is in space. This is awesome. NASA's using it. There was a ROSCon talk several years ago about that. If you want to go see more, I recommend checking that out. And I want to point out the Husky is one of the first commercial outdoor robots, taking us from indoor and space to outdoor and field robotics. Looking back at the history of ROS, there's been a lot of change. One of the trends that I want to point out is the scale of computing. In the PR2, we had two server boards. They had dual quad-core i7s, and they would pull a full kilowatt of power from the batteries if you pegged the CPU. And this is, to give you a sense of scale, the PR2 only used 200 watts of power to run all the motors. If you had the robot flex fully in every motor on all axes, it was 200 watts, whereas it was a kilowatt of power. But then when we got to the Turtlebot, we're now down in the 20 watt range. And the recent Turtlebot 3, the CPU on the Raspberry Pi pulls about 1 watt. And as we're looking forward, I think you'll see some of the talks, we're starting to look at microcontrollers, which are significantly below 1 watt of power. And this is great for the community. It's great, more capability. It means our batteries are going longer. We can have longer run times. And, of course, the price is coming down. The servers in the PR2 were much more expensive than, say, a microcontroller that you can get. So it's great to see. And following that reduction in cost, we're seeing commercial success with using ROS. One of the ones that many of you may not be as familiar with was Here.com. And they were a Nokia subsidiary. And they've recently sold to Audi, BMW, and Daimler to provide infrastructure data for the world of what they were driving around the world with a car to map the world. And when all of that infrastructure, everything going on the back end was using ROS and ROS bags to collect the data on 7 continents. They were collecting many kilometers of data every day with a worldwide fleet of cars. Similarly, many of you may have heard of Cruise. Recently was purchased by GM to do autonomous cars. It's great to see that. They've been using ROS for a long time. And very recently, Blue River recently was purchased by John Deere. They've been using ROS as an integrated product in agricultural robotics. So you can see we have autonomous cars, agricultural robots, all coming along. And there's a lot of startups here that are doing very similar things. Ask around, talk about them. Some are in stealth mode, some are have not gone public yet. But there's lots of fun stuff coming in the pipeline so we can get to these big announcements. So I want to point out one recent trend that has been really very evident to us recently is autonomous cars are coming. They're getting very, very popular. A few projects I'd like to point out. Baidu has recently released the Apollo project. It's a very large project. Just yesterday was their second major release, and it's a significant change. But you can see here from the screenshot that it's a large project coming out of China. It's one of the largest open source projects in China, and it has a lot of momentum. Our next talk is going to be about AutoWare, so I'm not going to give you a lot of details. I'll let them speak for themselves. But other projects that have been actively using ROS for a long time include Bosch. You can see this screenshot of a recent news article where you can see this is a Tesla Model S with RViz running on the large touchscreen. This is really cool, and it's one of the things that I'd like to point out is that when we're the ROS community, one of the best ways that we can see projects that are using ROS is you see an RViz in a screen capture of a video. And I do want to encourage all of you to share your projects. The community loves to hear about them, and it's way better to get an announcement from you saying, hey, we're using ROS, check this out, come join us, try our stuff, instead of just getting a screen capture. Bosch has been more public about this. Another car project that has been very public about their use of ROS is BMW. You can see this quote from a recent article which is great. And there's a lot of other companies here as well doing autonomous cars. We have Voyage and Apex are two current sponsors. I've already mentioned Cruise, and I know there are a bunch of other car projects in the room. I'll let you find them out, though. Go talk to people. So, as I said, we're a large community. I want to say thank you to everybody that has contributed commits into Indigo. Unfortunately, Google won't let me fit this on one page. So it goes to page 2. Doesn't fit on 2 pages. It goes to page 3. So there are over 2,800 people who have submitted commits to Indigo packages that are indexed on ROS.org. And I will tell you, this is an undercount. This is only the packages that have a source entry in the ROS distro and are hosted in Git. My tool doesn't yet import from Mercurial or some of the other version controls. But this is really great, and thank you, everybody. So I want to ask you all, everyone's here, this is great, this is an opportunity to share, connect with the community. There are lots of resources out there, and we rely on the community to keep this project going. So when you're out there, I highly recommend everybody go to answers.ros.org, ask your questions there, and while you're there, try to answer a question. There are a lot of questions there. Everybody here can go to answers.ros.org today and answer one question. And I challenge you to try to answer one question a day. Even if you're a beginner, there's somebody else who is just starting, and they will be even more beginner than you, and you can help them get through that first stage. But other ways to contribute, you can open pull requests and issues on GitHub or wherever the code is hosted. We work really hard to make it so that you can get to the source code and file tickets there. That's the point of the open source community. If you file issues and bug requests, that's the only way we know to fix them. If nobody's complained, it definitely won't get fixed. But even better is open a pull request, fix the problem yourself, and help the maintainers. And there's always opportunities. Documentation is important. That's how we grow the community. That's how we get people involved. It'd be great if you contribute. Of course, we love contributions in code. And as I was saying earlier, we love it if you share. So, welcome to ROSCon. Really great to have you here. I'm looking forward to meeting all of you. And thank you.